Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here on this beautiful Saturday morning. I think we're finally seeing some sunshine here in Alberta, and I am so happy about that. I think it definitely has done me a world of good, lifting my spirits anyways during this very, very strange time. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. This is our second installment of AC Connect, a webinar where we are connecting with educators in Alberta and trying to find out what you guys are going through, and also trying to get some answers for some pressing questions that you may have. So my name is Lisa Hodges. I am a board member of AECEA. And for those of you who don't know, AECEA stands for the Association of Early Childhood Educators of Alberta. And with me this morning, I have Leah as my co-host. I'll let Leah introduce herself.
Hello, I am Leah. I'm also a member of AECEA and a member of the ALC, which is the Alberta Leaders Caucus for Early Learning and Childcare. And yeah, we're excited to be here today and to kind of share some of the information that we have and to hear from you again about how it's going, what some of the experiences are. So thank you for being with us.
Alrighty, so our agenda for today, sorry, Leah, is there the next slide?
I know, I'm trying. Me and the techno, oh, I got it, yay.
There we go, perfect, yay. Okay, so for our agenda for this morning or for the next hour is going to be, we're gonna quickly answer some questions from our last webinar that we had. I'm going to give you an update from AECEA, what AECEA's been working on behalf of educators, and then we're going to jump right into sharing stories. So really just wanting to hear how everybody's doing and from the field.
Okay, so just a review, same as last time. So we really want to stay connected as a field. I know many people are feeling disconnected from their workplaces, from the families, from the children, from each other. And then to really kind of make this a space where we can share what's happening from the perspective of AECEA and ALC in terms of what we know, and then hearing from you about what you know about what's happening. So just some reminders. And we'll start with some answering of questions. And I know it seems probably frustrating in this time because the caveat every time someone says, oh, I'll answer your questions is we don't have all the answers. And really that's what's true about this too. We don't know, and we can't answer every question about how things, particularly things like federal benefits and monies and things like that, are going to specifically impact people's families and businesses, but we can certainly point you in the direction and encourage you to keep checking back with those resources, because things are changing all the time, as we know, and definitely reach out to one another for support, because each of us is connected with different groups, and so between all of us as a sector, hopefully we can have the resources and information that we need. So what we've done really is kind of collected the questions that came from the webinar last time that people put in the question box, as well as questions that were coming in on the AECEA website. And like I said, we're not going to have every answer, but we can certainly point people in the right direction. So the biggest question, of course, that people have is about supports and benefits. So like I said, I can't speak to how this is going to individually impact people, but do look at these things. The links are here. The links are on the AECEA website. You can just search Alberta COVID, Canada COVID, and you'll come up with those things. So do check in with that. And I believe we'll have the CCCF, the Canadian Childcare Federation, has put out, or sort of put a link to a summary of all the benefits in Canada that's been kind of put in plain language and just really comparing things. And I believe that link will be on the AECEA website coming up too. So yeah, I know it's difficult to hear. I don't have the answer for you, but we really, this is what we know. So This is what we can say, is just keep checking with that. And it does change all the time. More and more things are becoming available all the time.
And I think, Leah, the important thing, I know that you had to keep saying, you know, we don't know the answers. And again, unfortunately, we don't have all the answers. So in one way, we do, on a very personal level, feel the frustration that everybody's going through, the uncertainty, the scariness and sense of just not knowing what the future holds. And I think that that's something that nobody can really predict. Yeah, it really is hard to predict the future and what it'll look like when we get, you know, quote unquote, back to normal, what that's going to be. Yeah. However, I think it's really important as a, you know, as a sector that we could use this time to our advantage. We have the power to influence the future of our profession right now. Given this unique time in history, this is the time to advocate together for all educators. I've seen a real coming together of all the different sectors. You know, we have a wholeness in a sense where we are collecting stories from individuals and preschool programs, day homes, out of school cares, early childhood centers, ELCC programs. All of these people are now coming together and sharing their stories. So as a profession, we have a better idea of what, you know, our neighbors are doing. What does the landscape of early learning look like in Alberta? Every single one of those, like I mentioned, day homes, preschools, out of school, early learning and childcare centers, they all play a very, very important part. And each one of your voices is very, very important to us in how we advocate together for us as a profession together. We need to stand united. And during this time, I think it's really become evident for the need of a united voice or a liaison group or collective, such as AECEA, that understands the landscape of the industry and can speak on your behalf, collecting the questions and advocating for educators as a whole. So I think in a time that even I myself feel very powerless and that I don't have control of what's going on, in some small way, we can take control by committing to advocacy and having the ability to come together professionally, because I truly believe that this could really shape the next phase that our profession is moving into. And so part of what we have done is, with the questions that we gathered from the last webinar, and maybe this is a good time to mention too that again we have an amazing turnout. I think we had again 300 attendees registered, so we want to hear from everybody. Unfortunately today we won't be able to hear in person from everybody, but please, there is a question box in this webinar format. Only the hosts of this meeting will be able to see your questions. So if you don't get a chance to speak today, please, please, please put your questions in the question box. We do want to hear from you. Your voice is very, very important to us. If you don't throw in your questions in the question box, send us an email. We want to hear from you, because each story helps to build the story and to build our profession. But sorry, anyways, back to the slides here. Managing the pandemic. Some of the things that we found common threads and themes from our last question session and the questions that we gathered from the website were surrounding health and safety protocols. So what is needed now for programs in operation, and what is going to be needed in the future, and how are these being communicated to educators? Changes to government benefits. What supports are available for day homes and preschools that don't fall into the traditional funding models and support? How can these sectors be more included and considered in decisions moving forward? How about what happens when we do reopen? What protocols and guidelines will be in place? How will these be communicated to educators? And there was also quite a few questions about the concerns of the landscape of the profession as we do go back to work. What is being done to ensure this sector is sustainable, and what can be learned from the cracks and brokenness that was revealed during this pandemic? So again, AECEA is really focused on system building. How do we make this sector sustainable with quality childcare moving forward? And so I think even though we don't necessarily have the answers, being able to gather the common questions is really helpful when we make our asks of government and how we move that forward.
And a few things that we do know in terms of the work that AECEA and other groups have been doing, AECEA and the Alberta Family Childcare Association are working hard, particularly around this health and safety piece, to figure out what needs to happen for day homes and how is that being communicated, and then what does that look like as that information goes into those emergency childcare centers as well. So there is work happening to make sure that, particularly for day homes that have remained open and haven't had that closure necessarily, that information around health and safety is being gathered and given to people in a really clear and consistent way. So, I mean, those things are happening. In regards to the government benefits, again, that's something that's really AECEA continues to advocate and try and communicate with the ministry. One message that was given is that the program funding for reopened programs is not necessarily meant to be to sort of sustain programs in terms of viability. It's just meant to help with the operating costs in terms of having those maximums of 30 people, including educators and children, in a center. So, I mean, even gathering that clarity really kind of gives us a bit of an insight into what's happening. Reopening, we don't know what that's going to look like. And I think that's a piece where we all can do that advocacy in terms of connecting with licensing officers and, you know, writing to government to say, what are the protocols and guidelines and what's that going to look like? I know AECEA has had communication to say that they're looking at what other jurisdictions around the world are doing in terms of reopening, but what that's going to look like for us and how that's going to be communicated, we don't know yet. And what Lisa said about the landscape of what we're going back to is so important, that we don't know what that's going to look like. And now is the time for us to really be involved. And after AECEA did that first survey looking at programs and put that information out, they were actually contacted by the minister's office to try and find out why is it that these federal supports are not working for childcare programs in Alberta. And so AECEA is working on another poll and working on some case studies to really illustrate to government so they understand it's not as simple as they might think it is. So there is work happening so that we can really advocate to say, you know, it's not as simple as signing up for a federal benefit. It doesn't apply to everybody in the same way, and not everybody is going to be able to do the same thing with that in order to ensure that we're going to come back from this with a really strong sector. So it's really important that we participate in those things. And I think, Lisa, you were so right when you said now is a time when we can all really come together to see what we can do to create the landscape that we want to come back to, because I think we have some time and space and power to do that now, to say, here's what we want it to look like, and here's what we want to come back to, and here's what we expect out of our leaders in government in particular to support us.
Yes, you're definitely right, Leah. And I think that, thank you so much for sharing. That's a bit about the AECEA. I know that I've been so proud of the updates and the movement that's already been made. And although it's small steps, I think it's small steps in the right direction for sure. Mm-hmm. Another thing, in addition to working kind of with different organizations that Leah has mentioned, with different asks and relief funds, AECEA is also has a COVID page on their website. And Laura, I believe she's going to walk us through that page shortly so everyone can see exactly where it's located. But I encourage you to check back frequently, because it is always being updated. And for myself and other educators that I've worked with, it's been a really, really great resource. It's laid out, it's quite user friendly, and all that information that you need is right at your fingertips. So I'm not sure, Laura, if you're ready to walk through the website. Perfect, thank you.
I'm just gonna take presenter power back. I'm Laura Pratt. I am the paid employee of AECEA, so I am the voice that you hear. You guys aren't going to see me today because I think, like a lot of people working from home, then you kind of roll out of bed and you just start working. Okay. Sorry, guys, just trying to.
Do you need me to do it from my, oh, you got it, never mind. You don't need me.
Okay, So when you go to the ACE's homepage now, we made it super user-friendly. You don't have to go digging through our menu items or anything. You just click on this picture on the homepage. Takes you to a page that shares all that AC and our partners really have been doing on behalf of the ELCC field across Canada and in Alberta specifically. The big piece you want to, I think that we're going to take a look at later on is the survey analysis results and stuff, and some recommendations on what you can do to support ACE's advocacy. So our work really stems out of your own personal advocacy. So we build off of everything that you guys do and make it louder. So we really need people to work on behalf of themselves as well to push for these different initiatives and everything. So greater supports for operating costs right now is our biggest piece that we're trying to make sure that centers are financially viable to open once this crisis is all over. We've also compiled on here all of the current provincial and federal supports. So it's just kind of an easy way. Right now, I'm working to kind of restructure these so they're a little bit less of an endless page. We also have gathered in some mental health supports that are available. And these pieces I'm keeping regularly updated, so check back often. We've also created just different resources and articles from across the world as well. So the Canadian Childcare Federation, Childcare Now, the Childcare Resource and Research Unit submitted a plan to essentially save childcare. So they're asking everybody to also sign up, show their support and everything. Yeah, aside from that, it's very user-friendly, so I do encourage people to move through the site and everything, and if there are questions, please contact the AC office if you notice anything that's an error or whatever. So if you just go to the contact button at the top here, then you'd reach the office that way.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Laura. This makes me so excited because when I do a lot of the AC presentations, one of the questions that I always get asked is, well, what does AC do? What does AC do for me? And this is such a great example of the work where AC really, you know, can be the voice in a time that educators are feeling so powerless. So thank you so much for running through that and putting all that together, Laura.
For sure. Let me just transfer power back to you, Leah.
The power.
There we go.
So that's awesome. And I really also encourage people to use that because there's so much good information on there. And like Laura said, she's updating it all the time. So it's really important that we have that connection. We're really fortunate to have that here. Oops, oh dear. It gave me power back, but I don't know how to get rid of it. There we go. All right, so an update on the regulation review, because that is also something, of course, that has been, you know, mulled around over the last few months, that the childcare licensing regulation was up for review towards the end of this year. That has been officially pushed back to January of next year. So we're not in any urgency necessarily. The date, again, might be reevaluated depending on how long COVID lasts. And our big questions are, how will AC be at the table? How will we get our concerns and ideas heard? And of course, AC has already submitted to government the Getting It Right paper around things we'd like to see in the regulation review. As far as we know, right now, we can expect that consultation will happen. It will most likely all happen online, which is as much as we know now. We don't know what that's going to look like and how that's going to roll out. And so we do continue asking, you know, for more information. Of course, this isn't top of mind, but we don't want it to kind of fall under the radar so that it's nobody's top of mind and all of a sudden we have new regulations. So do continue asking about these things and asking the minister about what we're doing about quality now that we don't have accreditation, and how are we moving forward with the regulation review, and what is the consultation process going to look like. So those are certainly pieces of advocacy that all of us can do individually as well, to let the ministry know that this is still important to the sector and it's on people's minds, and we know this is going to have a really big impact going forward. And now, especially as things are in flux, we can hopefully really make some changes that will be really impactful for us as we go forward. Goody. Oh, okay. So we have a question for you. We have a couple of things we want to do. This is our first question, is really getting a sense of how can AECEA help you right now, and what do you see this looking like? So we're going to just sort of pause our talking for a few minutes to let people respond to that in the question box. So you can, like Lisa said, the question box is only visible to the organizers. So you can answer those questions right now in the question box about what would be most helpful for you that AECEA could be doing right now. And keeping in mind that that AECEA is here to advocate for the sector as a whole. So what would be most helpful in that advocacy role? And what do you see this looking like? What would your role be? What would our role be? How would you see those things happening? So please use the question box to kind of put some thought into that right now.
I do just have 2 people with their hands up, or a few people here, so I'm just going to unmute them so they can ask
Okay.
question. So Lerma Vitug, you have your hand raised. Can you have a question or? Okay. So Tammy Vick, you also have your hand up. Do you have any questions? No. And Lisa Beckix, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Do you have a question?
Don't forget that even if we unmute you, you still have to unmute yourself. So you can click on the microphone.
No. Alrighty, move to the next.
Maybe while we're waiting for everybody to speak, I just saw a reminder in my chat box here, just a verbal reminder for everybody that this session is being recorded. So once again, if you would like your confidential responses, please use the question box. Otherwise, we would love to have this recording available for everybody. Your story and your voice is very important, so please do feel free to share with us via, I guess, call in as well, but just as a just to let you know that it is going to be recorded. Thank you.
Thanks, we did forget that. Well, continue to answer the question using the question box, and we'll kind of keep going with a couple of things that we want to mention before we get to hearing from everyone else. Once I get my computer to work.
So Melanie Nickel, you have your hand up. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I already know the answer, but I just think that the other preschool owners want to hear it from you guys as well. We haven't always been a big part of it, only because we haven't had access to accreditation and so on. but is preschool going to be included in this advocacy piece more than ever now with the changes?
Yes, definitely. That is something that we're very aware of, that I guess there's a divide between, the various sectors, and that's really what we're kind of hoping for and trying to work towards, is that childcare and early learning will be seen as a whole and not as this kind of piecemeal side of things, and so that everyone can have access to the supports and the pieces of that. What that will look like, we don't know, of course, but it's definitely something that is on the radar.
Well, I just want to say on behalf of all preschools how much we appreciate it. This pandemic has really showed us what everybody does, and I think we can all agree that we all have a true love and passion for families and children, and those daycares and programs that are still running and offering care, and those programs that have been closed, they're all in tough places. But I think preschools are really showing great strength in that we are also closed, but we are continuing to offer services for free because we have that connection to families, and I think this has really shown me how amazing we are as a field, but how big of a piece that preschool can play in it.
That's very well said. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks, guys.
So I'm just going to ask as well that if you do not have a question, please lower your hand. I think we're going to run through the rest of this PowerPoint, and then they are going to open things up a little bit more. So we'll get back to them then so that we can shift through the PowerPoint.
Definitely. So we've kind of already talked about a lot of this, but what are we doing? How are we working towards this positive change? And you might have seen when Laura was walking us through the website, the hashtag Childcare Matters Alberta. So we're really hoping to kind of collect all of the social media pieces under this hashtag so that, oh dear, it really kind of highlights for government and for others in the province that childcare is a big piece of it, and there are many pieces, and that the sector as a whole is working together to advocate. So we ask that you use that in all of your social media pieces to really bring together all of the good work that's happening. AECEA also sent out an email this week about a new poll. So the government children's services, after the first survey results came out, children's services reached out to AECEA to say, tell us more about this. And so this new poll is really looking for information about how childcare programs are paying for their premises. And that information will really inform how Alberta might support, rental costs in coordination with federal emergency benefits and things like that. So our voices really have been heard, at least a little bit, around some things. And so there is connection to find out what is working for the sector and what isn't, and how can this, continue to move forward in a way that supports the sector as a whole. Some other things that we can all do are to share the letters and documents from the AECEA website. So a couple of weeks ago, that letter went to the ministry in regards to what needs to happen in Alberta, looking for temporary operating funds for programs. So that can still be shared back to the ministry. And like Laura pointed out, that petition for a national response for childcare coming from CCCF and Childcare Now and the Childcare Research Unit. So that can be shared, and you can sign that petition as well. So there's lots of ways to really get that information out there, that the need to recognize childcare as essential across Alberta, across Canada, has never been higher. And so we all can have a part in that, which is kind of exciting to see that, although we're in a really uncertain time, that we do have an opportunity to really make a difference for what we want to see in early learning and childcare moving forward. And now it's your turn. we have about a half an hour left, which is perfect because we wanted to have at least half the time hearing stories like we did last time. We would like to hear if there are people who are working with children in day homes or in the emergency childcare centers, some of your stories about how it's going and what's different and what's working, and really what you're seeing from that side of things. And then as well from the other areas of the sector, you know, preschools and day homes and childcare centers, what's happening? How are you staying connected? So now is the time. Well, we will open that up to you.
Yes, so just put your hand up and I can unmute you for whoever has any questions.
And then just once again, thank you for everybody for sharing. With a number of attendees, we won't be able to get to everybody personally today, but please, 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 if you don't get to talk today, send your comments into the question box or email us. We still really want to hear from you.
We do. So this is a time where you can be sharing your story. So we'd love to hear from people working or working in programs that are still open. We'd love to open the conversation to some of those stories right now.
Sure. So Alem, I'm going to butcher this last time, I apologize, Habtima Mariam, you've been unmuted. Did you have a question?
Okay. And then just once again, if we do unmute you, you might need to unmute yourself as well to be able to begin talking.
I will move to the next. Lisa Beckix, you have your hand up again. Did you have a question? You'll need to unmute yourself if you do. If not, please just hit the hand button again to lower it. Okay, we will move to the next. Susan Hymansberg, you've been unmuted. Did you want to make a comment or have a question? Okay, move to the next. Gaia Sudin, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Khan, you've been unmuted. Did you want to make a comment or did you have a question? No. Okay. Bonnie Boisvert, you've been unmuted. Did you want to make a comment or have a question?
I have a comment. I have a daycare in St. Albert. We have 2 private websites after for daycare to the parents and the children on them. Staff member who will read stories every day to the children, and we also email and text each other back. So we have been in contact with our parents and our other staff members.
Awesome.
That's amazing, Bonnie. I think it's a true testament to just how great educators are, and even in these times, paid and unpaid are still choosing to make those connections with children and their families. So well done, and you and your staff are amazing.
Thank you.
Okay, so Candace Kickstra, you've been unmuted. Did you want to make a comment or have a question?
Sure. I'm from a closed program in Lacombe, and I have a daycare and a preschool license, but we've been connecting with parents. I read a story 3 times a week, and I do Zoom meetings with the kids and families 4 times a week. So we've been connecting that way. I've been reaching out if they need help, in any ways when they're home by themselves. We've sent them letters, just trying to stay connected and let them know that they're not alone.
That's amazing. How fantastic. Thank you.
And Roxanne Langevin, you've been unmuted now if you have a comment or question to make.
I just would like to share what we've been doing to stay connected with families at Lansdowne. So we've been sending out messages. We pre-recorded and we've been the director has been sending out messages week by week from the educators, and also resources to the families. And families have even responded how they appreciate it. They've even sent back little notes from their kids. So that was very heartwarming to see, and it's a way to keep connected. Thank you. And
Thanks for
for
sharing, Roxanne.
Responding.
Okay.
Okay, I'll try to go through the list. If anybody wants to make a comment or question, again, just put the hand up. It should be in your GoToWebinar bar that shows up. But I will go through and I will try to unmute the people we tried to before. Alem Habtemariam, you've been unmuted. Did you have a comment or a question? I guess not. Gaia Sudden Can, you've been unmuted again. Did you have a comment or a question? Oh, nope. Okay, so I don't have any hands up right now.
I think it's truly amazing, and I know even just with the three that we've heard from today, completely 3 or 4 people that we've heard from this morning, completely blows me away that, again, like, which profession are you going to find people that have been in most cases laid off, they're not paid, but yet they still use their personal time to make connections with essentially people from work, to continue to make those work connections. But we see that it's so much more than just work. It's so much more than just a job to us. It's truly a profession of the heart, and I am so excited and so proud to be able to be a part of this profession with everybody, and everybody that is making connections, that is able to make connections. Thank you for doing that, for the children, the families, the profession. And for those of you that aren't able to make connections, please know that we are here to connect with, and would love to hear any and all stories that you have to share about this time.
So Robin Eggleston, you have been unmuted. If you have a comment or a question, please, floor is yours.
Hey ladies, my name's Robin, and I want to say thank you first and foremost. But I am a supportive childcare worker, and I work one-on-one with a little boy with an exceptionality. I was just wondering if you guys had any information as to like what that would look like going forward, and if that role and responsibility would still be something that was available.
Right now, it's not something we have any specifics on, but it's a really good question. Even if you want to add that to the question box so that we have a record of it too, and then that's something that we can sort of look at how that fits in with what we're doing and where that is. Yeah, and I mean the piece around exceptionality sometimes is a crossover between, you know, the education side and the early learning and childcare side. So thank you for asking, though.
Yeah, of course. Thank you for answering.
I'm sure there are a lot of people that are wondering the same thing, Robin.
Definitely. And a lot of families that are wondering the same thing about what that's going to look like as they go forward, because that's that's a really specific role that requires a specific way of working. So
Patricia Cameron, you've been unmuted now if you have a comment or a question to make. You may just need to unmute yourself. Oh, nope. Okay, so I'm down. Again, I just ask, there's a few people who we've tried to contact who have their hands up again. If you do not want to make a comment or a question, please put your hand down. Otherwise, we'll try to unmute you again. So, Alem Habtemariam, did you have a comment or a question to make? No.
we're all just figuring out this online platform stuff for sure. So
Yeah.
if it's not working for you, that's okay.
Miriam Safe, you've been unmuted now if you have a comment or a question to make. Okay. Melanie Nickel, you have your hand up again. You've been unmuted if you have a comment or a question that you would like to make.
Yeah, I just wanted to make the comment that we all really appreciate AC coming together and doing this for us. The presentations are amazing and informative, and I think after a couple of really bumbled town halls and not everybody feeling connected to the ministry, I think if anything was going to make us feel like one voice, it's what you guys are doing here today. So I just wanted to say thank you from everyone.
Thanks, Melanie.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's definitely a tricky time because we know that, you know, the ministry has been holding, well, had been holding things like town halls, but really recognizing that not everybody had access to those. And that was actually a big kind of reason why we wanted to start this connection process, because we recognize that not everybody has access to those, and it's not always sort of the type of environment that we might feel comfortable in. But we wanted to create a place of safety where educators and people who work in this field from all the different ways that we do that could kind of come together to share what's happening and what we're doing and how we can really move forward out of this from a place of strength. So we appreciate that all of you are willing to participate and kind of navigate this technological minefield that we might sometimes feel like we're in. So thank you so much, everyone. Do we have any other hands, Laura?
Excuse me. Not that I'm seeing. I can try to go through the list again.
I think while Laura's going through the list there, in my network, we talk about the story a lot and the power of story. And I think a lot of times in our profession, we use the power of story with children, you know, through learning stories to communicate with parents throughout the day. But I think there is really a value in the story of the educator as well, and how each individual story, whether you're from a preschool program, whether you're from a support worker, whether you're, you know, day home, out of school, early childhood, all of those together, everybody's story has a purpose and is meaningful, because that's what moves it forward. And I think the understanding that's starting to develop of the other, so of the other sectors, of the other programs that we might not know about, has really been developing through the power of story of, hey, you know, they're educators too. They're going through the same thing we are, and we are stronger together. So it is absolutely wonderful getting to hear everybody's story. It is such a rich experience for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, I will try Patricia Cameron again. Did you have a comment or a question to make? You've been unmuted. Okay, Jennifer Salvador, you have been unmuted now if you have a question or a comment.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for doing this amazing thing. Like, we're from Edmonton, and we're just really confused as everybody else. But my question is, so do you have any ideas on what's going on with the operations of the emergency daycares in terms of health and safety protocols? Because now moving forward, we're also looking into like how will we start initially when everything is kind of all the restrictions are kind of relaxed. So yeah, thank you.
Is there anyone who's working in an emergency center that wants to kind of share what's been communicated and how that's been working for you? I mean, I think that would be amazing to hear from directly from the source.
Eileen Pervina Abma, you have been unmuted if you have a question or a comment. Alrighty. I did have in here, just in the question box here, I have somebody saying that as if we could maintain this way of communication when we go back to normal days, Monday to Friday, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., that AECEA could keep running this webinar maybe once a month to update them on information and everything. I think that's a good idea and could definitely be feasible going forward.
Yeah, and it was actually something that we were looking at, is to how are we going to connect with educators? We really wanted that connection piece to be at the forefront, because if we're amplifying the voice of educators, we need to be hearing from the educators. So it was something that was in the works, it was in the plans, and then when COVID hit, it kind of pushed our plans that, okay, like this has to happen right now. So in a way, it was, I think, almost like a blessing in disguise. We do get to make these connections, and I believe it is something that we would like to continue forward.
And just in response to the previous question about health and safety, I don't want that to get kind of lost in the shuffle there. You know, we don't know what that's going to look like going forward. It's something we keep asking about, to say, you know, we need a really clear and coordinated plan where information is given in a really consistent way to everybody about what that's going to look like. But we don't know. We don't know. I mean, and what the protocols are in, you know, the emergency centers that are open. We don't know if what exactly that's going to look like when we start reopening either. So unfortunately, we only know kind of the information that we've been given, and the centers that are open have the protocols, but I don't know that everybody has access to what those health and safety protocols are right now. So sadly, it's a wait and see.
Hi there, it's Jennifer Usher here. I have a question that came in through Facebook, so I thought I would share that if that's okay.
Of course.
Okay, so I have Trisha. She is from Apple Blossom Day Homes here in Medicine Hat, and she has I guess more of a comment. She's just commenting on the fact that she is has lost half of her children in the day home, and then obviously half of her income as well. She is still connecting with families who are home at this time. She's been dropping off open-ended materials for play, art, and sensory experiences. Thanks for letting me share that. She just was having trouble with the platform. She's new to it, so.
Yes.
Well, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing that for her, Jennifer. And once again, just like absolutely blows my mind the heart and the soul and the dedication and motivation that educators are having during this time.
Okay.
Do we have any last hands up, Laura?
We do. I'm just not sure if they're all people. They're all people we've tried to contact, so I'll go
Okay.
through again. Eileen, Perveen, Adma, did you have a question or a comment to make?
And once
Hello?
again, just a reminder that you might need to, oh, there she is.
Okay, all right. Yes, I've been listening to this webinar with a smile on my face. It is wonderful, I have to say, to see that these webinars are continuing. AECEA is becoming a word, I believe, that throughout Alberta and specifically here in the network or the Foothills Children's Wellness Network, it is a place to go to. And we are working towards that idea of if you have a question, where do you go? AECEA. And Lisa is part of this, and I tell you, it is wonderful to see that sort of the various aspects of early learning and childcare were coming together to talk about what are we all in this for and why. And it doesn't matter the various little programs that we're offering, but it's that we're doing this for our children and for families. And so it's so neat to hear as well in this webinar of all the educators and programs who are really continuing to make and communication with parents and families. This is out of our own time. And it's, Lisa, you spoke to the heart and soul of the educator, and that is so true. And it's so wonderful to hear this being shared again this morning. Thank you. Thank you so much for this. And I certainly agree. Once this is over, I believe that to connect as a province or even as a country, where we can continue to have these webinars maybe once a month.
Thanks for sharing, Aileen.
Thank you.
So I just have at least one comment to read just from the question box. Patricia Cameron had put in here kind of some stuff that she's doing. She said she didn't have access to a microphone, so I'll just read it out for you guys. So for the children regularly in my care who are home with parents, I've dropped off art and sensory materials so that they can have art and sensory experiences at home. Baking soda, vinegar, paints, bubble blowing paint, rocks to paint and hide, recipes for Play-Doh, and add open-ended play experiences and art and sensory experiences on my private Family Day Home Facebook group daily to inspire some at home to home play experiences. So thank you for that, Patricia. That sounds great.
It's just so great to hear all of these things. And really that what Lisa spoke about, that dedication to continuing the work we're doing, regardless of sort of what the outside circumstances are. And that it's so powerful that we're willing to continue this work, whether or not we're being paid, whether or not we're open, that just the priority is children and families. So thank you for that.
And I have another comment here from Atwila Horn. She says, I am from a closed center. Our staff have stayed connected through Zoom meetings, email, messaging each other. And on our Facebook, our director has been reading stories and the Community Resource Center has been sharing crafts and cooking time on the daycare Facebook.
Cool.
That's awesome.
And if you aren't able to, if you don't have a microphone and you're not able to speak, do use the question box. And even after we finish though, use the contacts through the AECE website or use the thread on the AECE Facebook page to really share your stories. Because that's really important for us to stay connected, is that we hear one another's stories and we know that we're not doing this work alone. So thank you for everyone for doing that. And maybe if we don't have too many other hands up, we can leave the webinar open for people to add things to the question box. We don't have any more information to share at this point. We kind of got all that out of the way at the first half. So if people do want to continue sharing through the question box or putting your hand up, you can do that. Yeah, thank you.
So I do have one from just comments from Deanna Mendoza. She says our program is an innovative program working with newcomer families. We receive federal funding, which has not been withdrawn at this point. We are in contact with families by phone, WhatsApp, and Zoom. Families are so grateful for our educators to be reaching out with support and activities, and for the families to connect with each other. I'm proud of how staff have taken to the technologies and have been creative with creating activities, using home materials, and in sending resources. It can be difficult for English language learners to communicate by phone, but they so appreciate the friendly voice or faces. That is great.
Yeah, wow. Thank you, Deanna.
It would be a really difficult time for newcomers coming to Canada and everything and being thrown into this.
Yeah. And not having those regular supports that you had before.
Definitely. So I'm going to make another run through the people who have their hands up here. They're ones that we've tried to contact before and everything. So again, if you do not have a question, just lower your hand, or I'll go through and try to mute each person or unmute each person as I move through the list. So Lisa Beckix, if you do have a question, you'll just need to unmute from your end because my system is telling me you have it muted on yours. Okay. And Alem Habtim Miriam. Oh, nope, lowered his hand. Tammy Vick, did you have questions or comments that you would like to make?
I do. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, perfect. So I had my hand up accidentally the first time. I apologize. This time my comment is for the protocols for the centers that have reopened. Obviously, the cleaning protocols have stepped up on toys that the children are using. It's increased the bleach solution we use on them, or the commercial sanitizers work for them. The biggest change, though, is every morning before a parent steps foot in the center, they need to have taken their child's temperature and their own before they arrive, and there is a screening questionnaire that they have to fill out and sign daily and leave at the center when they're dropping their children off. There's social distancing we have to try and maintain during meal times. Obviously, it's a little more difficult with children, but I know my staff have been doing the best that they can with it. We have 8 children registered in our program, so you know we're happy to be able to help those families be able to get back to work. I think as things go on longer, the families feel a little more comfortable to return to their center that has opened, knowing that we have these protocols in place that we're following. The sand and water, they say you can still play with it, but you have to change it basically like every hour, half hour. We've just decided to completely cut that out anyway because we don't want to have to hassle with that. And with some of the soft toys too, we've taken a lot of the soft toys out of the room so that we don't have to worry so much about it staying on those surfaces, and just maintaining some of the hard surfaces and toys. And they said they get sprayed down after use and nightly for sure. So there's a lot more cleaning involved with it, but I know my staff have been maintaining it just to help those families.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing.
And that was sent out, sorry, by Alberta Health Services through the ministry of what we need to follow to be reopened.
Great. Thank you, Tammy.
Mhm.
So Jennifer, you have somebody who wants their comment read, so maybe we'll do that, and then I think we're pretty much at the end of our webinar time here. So go ahead, Jennifer.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, I have a comment from Anita Bruce from Brooks Preschool Society. She says that we are doing weekly videos with the children with lessons as where we left off, stories, science, sensory activities, etc. She's also encouraging kiddos to respond back with videos and photos on their private Facebook page. It is very fun to see how the families have been so engaged.
That's wonderful. Thanks for sharing, Jennifer. And I think it's been so powerful this morning. Thank you so much for everybody that has been here to join us. It's been so powerful, and I know this is a time that really has roller coaster emotions, and by no means that I definitely want to acknowledge that, you know, that there are sad times for sure, and that there are hard times and hardships, and I don't want to take away from that or minimize people who are feeling those emotions. However, I think it is absolutely amazing that everybody that we've heard from today, the positivity and the strength that has come through with their comments of, you know, like, we got this. We are innovative and resourceful. And thank you so much for everybody, like I said, once again, for being here today and for being the educators that you are, and for staying committed and for advocating and yeah, for doing what you do.
Yeah. And yeah, if we didn't get a chance to read everybody's out or anything like that, please know that we have received everything in the question box and everything, and we really appreciate everything that you shared with us. And we'll go through, and the questions that we can answer, we will hopefully be able to do so at the next webinar that we host. And the date will be released once we know. I'm assuming sometime next week we will have it. But yeah, other than that, the recording will be being shared, so it will be put up on the website, so people will be able to access it there. We will likely put it up on the Facebook page as well, I think is the plan. Yeah, otherwise, thank you so much for everybody in attendance. This is great.
Thank you, everyone. And hopefully we'll talk again in a couple of weeks.
And safely enjoy that sunshine out there today.
Indeed.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Thanks for joining.